Welcome to Twin City Talk. Today we are talking to Sara with Lam Museum. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
I feel like that's one of those hidden treasures a lot of people don't know about.
Yes, that is how we feel also. Little hidden gem tucked away on the Wake Forest campus. I think people maybe don't necessarily know it's there, but we are free and open to the public, and all of our events are open to the public. So, you know.
Well, we are here to change your obscurity.
Fantastic.
So tell us a little about the museum and what you guys offer.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is our 62nd year. We have been in 5 different locations and had 3 different names, which I think maybe doesn't help our visibility. Some people might know us just as the Museum of Anthropology. If you've been here a very long time, you would know us as the Museum of Man. Since 2021, we have been the Timothy S.Y. Lam Museum of Anthropology. And in 2020, we moved into our current location, which is in Palmer Hall on the Wake Forest campus. If you had visited us before, then it's only about 100 yards away, so it's not super confusing, hopefully. So we are North Carolina's only museum that studies global cultures and focuses on that specifically.
I did not know that.
Yes.
It's very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Superlative's always nice. We have about 30,000 objects in our collection from more than 90 countries and more than 350 cultures. We have a reasonably small exhibit space, so that means we change our exhibits very frequently in order to rotate those objects through.
Yeah.
And most of our exhibits are student curated, so this is Wake Forest student work that is on display.
So this will run in mid-October, and that's when one of my favorite exhibits runs. So can you tell us about that one?
Yes, absolutely. So Life After Death, Celebrating Day of the Dead, will be on display through December 12th. That is an annual exhibit that we do, and this is actually our 30th year of doing a Day of the Dead exhibit, so we're really excited about that. The exhibit talks about the different ways in which Day of the Dead is celebrated. When we first started doing that exhibit, it was much more of a what is this holiday, introducing people to the idea of it, and especially post-Coco, we realized that people know what Day of the Dead is. It's taught in schools now. It's a very different situation than it was previously. And so now the exhibit really focuses on, okay, this is not just one thing, and this is very differently celebrated in different areas, and why that is, and all of sort of the different focuses of Day of the Dead. It could be on the ofrenda, on the altering. It could be on the altar, rather. It could be a celebration in the cemetery. It could be like a big public celebration, like parades and festivals. So we cover sort of all of that and the different places in which that happens. We also have a really nice folk art collection connected to Day of the Dead, and so that's on display as well.
There's even, I didn't realize this, but there was even a section about the commercialization of it, and I didn't realize all these products.
Yes, it's not up this year because we're in a smaller gallery.
Gotcha.
So the size of it changes depending on what gallery we're in.
Just didn't realize how big it had grown, I guess.
Oh, huge. Yeah, you can go to any, sometimes into Burlington or Marshall's or something like that, and there's anything you could ever imagine with Day of the Dead imagery on it. So, yeah. So
how long have you been with the museum?
I've been with the museum for 20 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, a long time.
So what's your favorite part about working there?
Day of the Dead is one of them. That is my exhibit that I curate. I love that it is something different all the time. When you have collections that are that varied, when you have a pretty small staff, so it's a combination of always seeing something different, always being exposed to some different culture, some different celebration, something that you didn't even know existed, especially for me because I'm not an anthropologist by training. And then the fact that I get to do something different every day. My job is not just one thing, and so working with a small staff, lets us explore and do all kinds of different things, which is very fun.
What's something that you've been in awe of, either an artifact or something that you're just wow?
Let's see, we have so many cool things. It's very hard to pick, actually. I actually really love one of the things that's in Day of the Dead exhibit. It is a papier-mâché sculpture of Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera, and it is on a heart-shaped base, but it's split because they married and divorced more than once. And so they can be apart from each other, or they can be together and holding hands. And it's made by oh shoot, I'm going to forget what the name, but it's a famous family that makes these paper mache sculptures. They're in museums all over the world. They make them as big as like life size and larger for floats and big celebrations and things like that. Ours is significantly smaller than that, but it's still just it's a really cool piece.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's cool. I'm assuming since you've been at the museum for 20 years, you've been in Winston for quite some time.
Winston for 23.
So what do you love about it here?
I love that Winston is like the perfect size, that it is, you know, you can get anywhere in 15 minutes, that it is big enough to have, you know, all kinds of museums and performing arts and, you know, a downtown area that's very vibrant, all of those kind of things. But it's small enough that like I live on the outskirts of town and it's very like country and peaceful and quiet. So yeah, the combination of those things is ideal for me.
That must be an absolute truth about Winston, because it's got to be the top answer that we get. Some version of that is the answer that we always get. So it makes me think about how that must be something a lot of people just they gravitate to and they really want, because it's the accessibility and having everything you could want in the Four Seasons. Has a tendency to come up a lot too, but you also get the tranquility and the peace and the reasonable cost of living and these things.
Right, yes, the cost of living is...
there's that.
Growing up in the north and moving south.
Where are you from?
Connecticut originally.
Okay. Yeah. I was going to say, you don't have the southern accent. So.
No, I do in some cases. It's a, you know. But yeah,
it's according to who in your family you're talking to.
100%. So I worked in hotel sales before I moved on to the museum, and they would laugh at me because my accent would change depending on who I was talking to. But you like want to make the people feel comfortable if like, you know, Southern Baptist Convention is coming in to book rooms and I'm talking to them on the phone, that's a different voice than this voice.
Welcome, y'all.
Exactly.
Bless your heart.
Yes.
My mother's from upstate New York, so I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, now she sounds more Southern than any of us.
Really?
So funny.
Oh, she does.
That's
funny.
funny.
And she moved here when she was 18, so she comes by it honestly at this point. But it's thick.
That's funny. Yeah, because my older sister was because my family's from New Hampshire, and she was the one that was born in New Hampshire, and I was the one that was born here, but she sounds more Southern than I sound.
That's very funny.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
So what else besides the Day of the Dead is coming up in maybe the next year?
Sure. So the other exhibits we'll have up this fall, we our permanent, we only have one exhibit that stays the same all the time, and everything else changes. So we have an exhibit of miniature medieval Chinese ceramics that's currently on exhibit. So that is actually from our namesake collection, so from the Timothy Lam collection. He donated around 600 pieces, predominantly from a single kiln site in China called Changsha. We actually have the largest collection of those pieces outside of Asia. And this exhibit is focused on this about almost 80, I think, miniature figures. So they're like this big. There are lots of little animals and little people and things like that. It's very interesting. So this is done by students who were doing like true artifact analysis. And so there's like a section on goats and talking about like why these goats look different than these goats and what that might mean. And it's really interesting, actually.
How old are they?
They're from the Tang Dynasty, so they are over 1,000 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's a very cool collection. There's also a section that is not miniatures, but has some ewers and other vessels that have poetry on them. And so some people in the translation program at Wake has a master's in that. And they very kindly figured out what all of these say. So not only is it not contemporary, writing, and some of the brushstroke is hard to read anyway, but they did some amazing work and figured out what those
really
poems
cool.
say. Yeah,
That's
which is
extremely cool.
amazing.
Love that.
Yeah, so that's up through November 22nd.
So do you still have, because I know it changes, but there's usually interactive stuff and like scavenger hunts for kids?
Yeah, we have scavenger hunts for kids. We have two different versions of it. So we have one that's like a find the photo and then answer some questions. So that one's good because it can be used for a wide variety of ages. So if you're, a real little one, you might just want to find the photo and make check marks. If you want to do the reading and answer the questions. And then we have a harder one that's riddles. That is usually like middle school and up. We do with that one. But yeah, those are free for anybody to try out.
You still have like the little musical instruments up that they can play with?
We
or is
don't
that-
have musical instruments out right now because that was tied to a specific exhibit. Our interactives right now, Day of the Dead has a place where you can make an offering, so you can remember a loved one and add it just on paper flowers and add that to the altar. Don't have anything else out right now. But we always try to involve some kind of, interactive, make it kid-friendly.
Do like workshops? Can you talk a little about those?
We do. So we try to do craft workshops. We're not doing any in the fall, but we probably will again in the spring. They're usually in some way tied to something that's on display, and we will give a little lesson about the object, about the history, show other objects from our collection if we have things that are not on display that are also connected, and then people get a chance to work on that craft. And so we did Chinese calligraphy over the summer. That one we brought in a wonderful guest instructor in Mona Wu because that is not something that we can do ourselves. But if it is something we can do ourselves, we did tie-dyeing last summer. We've done a variety. We did mosaics. So just a variety of different things. Gives people hopefully a pretty affordable price point, something that they're creating that they can take home with them. It's pretty fun stuff.
Is there anything that you would like to have on display that you have not been able to acquire yet, or something you've wanted to do?
That's a great question. Let me think. I would really love to do something with shells and beading. We have so many objects from all around the world that have this amazing decorative beading. So whether that's Plains Indians, whether that's Cuba objects from Democratic Republic of the Congo, whether that we have all of these things. So I hope that one day we'll get around to that and kind of doing a comprehensive worldwide look at how beading is used. And
That's
I think
pretty
that
cool.
would be very fun. Maybe I don't know whether that's fun to anybody else, but it was really interesting to me. And I like the color. Part of my thing is I like color. We have sort of an ongoing joke that anthropology is very brown because it is a lot of baskets and a lot of wooden objects and a lot of things that don't have a ton of color. Often ceramic's not a ton of color, which is part of the reason why I love Day of the Dead because it's
very colorful.
super duper colorful. And so I like being able to bring out things that have a little more color and make it pop.
Makes sense.
That does,
Yeah. So basically, you want to do that so that you have more color in the museum.
Yes.
I got it. Okay.
Always.
Bust up the brown myth.
Yes. We do have some, and textiles too. We have a lot of textiles that don't get out as much as I would like them to. I think in part, so we have some on-site storage, which is about 10,000 or so objects that we use more frequently, I guess. But our textiles are not stored in the museum. And because of that, I think we just don't think of them as much, even though we have a great database where we can look at them. Anybody can actually look at our whole collection on our database online.
Oh, that's cool.
But they're not just as top of mind, really. And so to pull some of those out is always great too, because that's really fun. We actually have a mini exhibit right now with Tibetan saddle rugs, and so that is a fun one and has lots of color and talks about the symbolism that you find in those rugs.
So is this something that a lot of schools do? Do a lot of universities have?
There are
a
not
museum
a
like this?
ton of anthropology museums, no. Most schools more art oriented. Now they might have anthropological collections, but they're not interpreted the same way that we would interpret them.
I got you, because this is hitting me I was unaware of how vast this is and how much you've got. And then I started thinking, does every university have one of these things? And
No,
I was just completely
is the
unaware.
answer. There are, I think there may be 20 or 30 in the country.
Oh, okay. So that makes this that much more unique. And
Right,
rare.
yes. In terms of a university.
Remember that. It's very unique and rare what we have here. You got to go
That's
see
it.
Lam.
Got to go check it out.
Yeah, and it's free.
It's free.
And there's parking.
It's
and
free.
And free, and nothing is free anymore.
Yes,
So.
it's free.
Yeah,
There is dedicated
literally
visitor
nothing.
parking. It's, yeah.
How did the museum start?
So the museum started with anthropology faculty that were doing field work abroad and brought back objects from wherever they were working. And kind of started a little collection. And then, well, what do you do with this collection? People might want to see this collection. So when we first started, we were in the basement of one of the classroom buildings at Wake Forest. So really nobody was seeing. So it was very insular Wake Forest then. And then we moved to Ronaldo Village. And so then was when we really started like the public outreach part of it. And then moved to our first spot on main campus. And it just continues to grow and grow. So now we get collections, donations from all over the country. People find us in a variety of different ways. We get a lot, people who are downsizing. We have a fair number of missionary collections. So that's one of the ways that's common for people to travel to more isolated regions. And so we have a lot of that.
Are there any countries where you'd love to see something come from that we haven't or you haven't brought before?
I would like to see maybe more Central Asia and Middle East. We don't have as much of that as I would like us to. We're very strong, particularly West and Central African collections. So maybe North Africa a little bit more too. We have an enormous collection from Papua New Guinea. So soliciting anybody who knows a lot about Papua New Guinea, because we have a lot of things and we don't know a lot about them. Not a huge interest for Wake Forest students to do the research. So, we have a wonderful mass collection. So there's always something that we're looking for. We're at the point where we're a little bit more picky about what we take. For a long time, we would take anything that anybody would give us. Yeah. And now we're at the point where like
so many thoughts come to mind.
Now we're at the point where it's like, okay, it has to fit into truly what we're doing, not be many, many duplicates of things that we already have. So this actually ties into the other exhibit that we have up, which is basically a recent acquisitions exhibit. But there was a Museum of World Cultures at UNC Wilmington that was never kind of really its own thing. Like it didn't have a separate building and a big display space and all of that. And then eventually the collection went into storage. And so a couple of years ago, they offered us the collection. And so we got to go through, choose the objects that we wanted that were our criteria were sort of that it would either duplicate pieces that we use a lot so that we're not harming the pieces that we're using, or that it would fill in gaps in our collection. And so we took about 300 pieces from that collection. The highlights of those are on display through next February 14th. So that's that's a good long one. That's a really fun one because it really is just things from all over the world. So we're not being geographically specific and has a lot of cool stuff in it.
It's cool.
Very nice.
So how can people find out and visit you guys?
Sure. Best spot is our website, which is lammuseum.wfu.edu, and that's LAM. And then our social media is Lam Museum. So that's the best way to find us.
And you're on Parker Hall? Is that what you said?
Palmer Hall.
Palmer.
We do have an actual address. For many years we didn't, and it is 1315 Carol Weathers Drive.
And it's very easy to get to.
Yes.
Like I said, they're not doing construction anymore in that building, are they?
No more construction in our part of campus. It's pretty easy to get there. If people are familiar with the radio station, it is by the radio station, by the tennis courts, by the field hockey stadium. All of those things are kind of the area and where we are.
So, well, thank you so much for coming on and providing this resource to our state, since we're the only ones.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
This is Twin City Talk. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook. Thank you. The views and opinions portrayed by guests on this podcast are not necessarily those of the distributors and hosting companies. And if you love this podcast, that's great, but don't think about stealing it. Reach out to us and talk about the content, because it is copyrighted.